Mallards, it is Sunday, and this afternoon I went to see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I just want to talk about it. So, as you know, I'm a huge fan of the MCU, and barring a very few exceptions, I generally enjoy the films, and Quantumania is no different. I know that people have some trouble with it. They feel like it doesn't move forward phase 5, or that it doesn't have any sort of additive to the larger universe. And I would argue that it does have an additive to the larger universe, and also that I am okay with a lot of these newer films being a little more self-contained and sort of filling in their own worlds and just having like a little stinger. So for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, you don't necessarily need to know anything else going in. Like, it helps to know who Ant-Man is a little bit, but there's voiceover in this, and he essentially gives all of the information you need to know, and he is discovering new things at the same time the audience is, so you don't actually need to know anything about this world because everybody's learning about it together. And then the story wraps up relatively neatly, sort of akin to the end of a season of television, where you're like, yes, this arc that we've been traveling this season wrapped up, but here's a little bit, just in case, a little poke of what might be coming next. And I feel like that's fine and actually a really nice way to pull things together. So I don't mind that aspect personally. Now, there will be a lot of spoilers for this film coming up, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this. Or if you don't care about spoilers, feel free to watch, but like, you will be spoiled, and I just want you to know that. We're going to start with things that I didn't particularly like about this film, because it's going to be a shorter section, and then I'll sort of roll into the things that I particularly enjoyed. I do not like that they recast Cassie Lang. I love Catherine Newton a lot. I think she's fantastic. I've enjoyed her in many, many, many things. But I'm upset by the fact that they recast, considering that they had to recast in Endgame because Cassie was 5 years older. But not a lot of time has passed between then and now, so I didn't see a reason to recast, except that they wanted a slightly bigger named performer. And I just wish that that hadn't happened. I wish that they hadn't recast Cassie. I think that Emma did a fine job in Endgame. I am of the personal opinion that anybody who is a professional actress can probably be coached into doing a great job in this film. And so I really wish that they had just stuck it out with the original performer, because I love the continuity of things and the growth. And it just makes me sad when they recast people. And I understand that it has to happen sometimes, and that is okay, but I am disappointed in that. Other things that I did not like about this film. Wow, what a waste of the Wasp. What a waste of hope in general. I feel like she has been wasted in the MCU as a whole. She has a lot of potential and a lot of interesting possibilities, and we just waste her being a tertiary character. And she's the second titled thing in the movie. Although, I will say that this film seems to be about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Hank and Janet, not Scott and Hope, which is fine. But I do feel like Hope Van Dyne is wasted, and that is a bummer, because I think that she has the potential to be really cool and really interesting and have character development and growth, and we just don't get any of it. I also wish that there was just a little more dipping into the blip in the past. I feel like they have created a fair amount of conflict over the people who were blipped versus the people who weren't, and what that has done to the world. And it's very strongly addressed in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and a little bit addressed in some of the other series, but it's very, very much not at all addressed in most of the main films. And I think that's a little bit to the detriment. And I don't know if that's because when they finished writing Endgame and they were like, yeah, this blip happened, like we've wrapped this up really nice. They just like didn't have a concept of how the effects of that were going to change the larger world, and so they're not sure how to deal with it now. Or if the ideas that they had aren't lining up, I'm not sure, but I do wish that there was just like a little bit more of that. So those are the things that I wasn't a huge fan of, and now we're going to get into the things that I enjoyed. I love a good sci-fi romp to an alien planet, and wow, if the line between MCU and Star Wars is not like blurring like crazy in this film. Not just because they're on an alien planet, but a lot of the aesthetic choices for how this film looks have like especially new trilogy vibes to them. I enjoyed, I think, every new character that was introduced. I liked them all. I thought that they were fun and had a little bit of personality and a little bit of interest. And so I enjoyed getting to know all of those new characters. I also really enjoyed Cassie Lang's arc and story in this film. I thought that it was a fun use of stature. I like introducing her and her powers and her abilities and also her sensibilities into the world, because I really know, like, they're building towards Young Avengers, right? They've got to be. And this version of Cassie in with like Kate and Yelena and who knows who else, like, as they all come together, will be so good. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I enjoyed that. I also loved the use of ants in this film, like creating an advanced ant civilization, all about it. I think that Janet Van Dyne was so freaking cool in this. Her whole story, getting all of that backstory of her in the quantum realm, just the way that she carried herself, like everything about that character in this film was really fun. And I also enjoyed MODOK. Like, MODOK was ridiculous, but MODOK is always ridiculous. And so I feel like the decision they made for MODOK is just like the exact right amount of, oh my God, I cannot believe that they did this, that it's perfect. I also was blown away by Kang. I feel like everybody talked about Kang in Loki and how great the performance was and the performer was. And I guess that's true, but I was just so frustrated by the last episode of Loki for my own personal reasons. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that series, that I didn't really pay much attention, and I mostly was just angry to be there. And that was not the case here, so I got to enjoy Kang the Conqueror a little bit more, and the nuances were really fun. I liked the emotional journey I was taken on by that character, and like how you can see this like human side of him and this humanity and this heart along with the idea of him being a conqueror. And also, I just love how completely unapologetic he is about being a conqueror. He's just like, yeah, that's what I am. I am a conqueror. And she calls him a monster, and she says, that's what monsters do. And he says, no, that's what conquerors do. And I think that that is in itself a very powerful sentence, because we as a society tend to elevate a lot of conquerors. Like, if they've won, we're like, yay! All these people who committed atrocities, but they won, so they're the conquerors and we like them. And so the idea that she is like, no, you are a monster. And he's like, no, I'm literally just a conqueror, and that is what all conquerors do. I really liked that. And I think it makes him a fun villain, and I'm really looking forward to the multiverse of Kangs coming together and what's going to happen there. And like, fingers crossed for an Iron Lad to join the Young Avengers, who is a young Kang. So like, hopefully that'll happen too. But I think that that'll be fun. I think his performance was really great. I think that he is building up to be a really interesting villain. And I enjoyed basically every encounter with him. I also really liked the final fight between Kang and Scott. And this bit is in the trailer where Scott Lang says, I don't have to win. We just both have to lose. And I enjoyed that bit. And I do think that it really speaks to Scott Lang's Ant-Man character and his view of the world as a whole, is that he doesn't necessarily believe that he can win. He doesn't have the ego that a lot of other superheroes have, but he knows that he will not give up. He's going to keep fighting, even if he's getting beaten down, because he doesn't have to win. He just has to make sure that the bad guy loses. And that's just such a different mentality, and I loved it. I was really about it. And the other thing that I want to mention is that Ant-Man Scott Lang has written a book that is a bestseller. People are giving him free stuff all the time. People are taking pictures with him and recognizing him on the street, and they're very happy to see him, which was very important to me as a watcher of Ms. Marvel, because I needed Scott Lang to be like the most popular Avenger after all of the like nods and hints that there were to people really being into Ant-Man in the other media that I have consumed. So I was glad that it was sort of like that, although there was one person who still called him Spider-Man, and I was like, there's a mural of him as Ant-Man, and he has a podcast. And I am still really hard into that fan theory that he is the one who helped them write Rogers the Musical, and that's why Ant-Man is in it. So I think that he deserves a little more recognition, but I did like that there were little nods to that. And like the one thing that I would like to add that is absolutely not plot relevant, and it's just a little fan service nod, is that I wish that they had acknowledged either Rogers the Musical or the podcast from Ms. Marvel or one of the other like Ant-Man things that we had seen. Like if there had been another graffitied wall art of him in this, I think that would have been great. And so overall, I had a lot of fun at this film. I think it's a fun romp. I think that if you've never seen a Marvel film, it's actually just kind of an enjoyable sci-fi story. And if you're really into Marvel lore, then there are little bits and bobs there for you. And it is got a little sprinkling of stuff that's coming, but it doesn't necessarily need to enrapture everything that's growing. Like, I like the idea of giving this section just a chance to gestate and work its way forward. And I think that what they're building with the younger characters is only going to get better. And I really, really, really am looking forward to seeing how these next phases play out. Let me know what you thought of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I would love to hear your thoughts on things, and I will see you tomorrow.